Hey, Paul.
Hey, Fab.
How's it going?
Good. It's going
Good.
good.
Cool.
It feels like spring day in December. So
A spring day in December. You're right. Although from my basement, it always looks. I call my basement office now a casino because rain or shine, whatever time of day it is, I have no clue what's going on.
well, you do have
It's
a
all
window
work all
there.
the
I
time.
guess you could turn around and look out once in a while.
I guess I could. Anyway. All right, cool. I'm excited about the show. We're trying out a bit of a different format, I guess, so to speak. So today I would like to talk about helping sales leaders improve the listening skills of their sales team, or the active listening skills, I guess, of their sales team. And maybe to set the table, Paul, like what's the behavior that a sales leader should be looking for in their sales team? Like what's active listening? What's the behavior that they should be looking for?
Yeah. So specifically active listening. So one of the things that we notice a lot as sales leaders, and even if you analyze yourself as a salesperson, is we talk a lot more than we think we do in a conversation. A lot of people have heard you've got 2 ears, 1 mouth. You should be listening twice as often as you talk. But it's hard sometimes when you have a specific goal in mind, and so you're putting it out there. You're all excited and you want to mention stuff. So you need to train yourself to, one, not talk too much, and two, listen and hear what's important. So as a sales leader, you really have to hone in on figuring out how to get your salespeople to listen more. So if we talk about the methodology for a bit, it's all about asking an open-ended question, most likely, 99% of the time, to get your prospect or client to speak about what's important to them, right? And when you do that, it's great. We've talked a lot about this, and then listening for what they say to you, and then asking more to find out more about what's important to them. What's really hard for a salesperson is like, in the first answer he gives me, there's like 5 things that I can deal with, and I want to tell them all about it. So right away, my product can do this, and when they cut off the person, my product can do this, and it's true, and the client might even be excited, say, oh wow, that's great, but because you haven't taken the time to truly listen, you may have missed out on other things that you could have helped them with, or find out more about the situation, or gone deeper into the subject to really find out what drives this person, your potential prospect or client, what their needs and wants are. You've just scratched the surface, you have a solution, and bang. So that's all about active listening, because if you're really listening properly, you're going to get a chance to figure out and understand what's important to that prospect. And
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and so what I'm hearing is that everybody says you have to listen, but the real core as to why a salesperson has to listen is not that the other person feels important or whatever, is that there's their needs, right? I have a pain, my salespeople aren't closing, my CRM's a mess, my whatever, my accounting's a mess, my accounts receivable are a disaster. Like those are all pains, right? They're all the high surface needs that usually get people to start doing their research. And I say people, like prospects, start doing the research and reaching out to consultants and software providers or plumbers or whatever the case may be.
Yep.
But by listening, those pains hide real impact on the business, right? Like when a person contacts you, Paul, specifically, and my salespeople aren't closing, the gut instinct of a younger or maybe whatever salesperson would be like, that's great, we have like a whole closing sales program, boom, we're done, right? But there's a deeper impact on the business that can only be understood when you shut up and listen, right? And let them talk a little, because, and the reason why that matters is, like, if you stay top level, right? My salespeople aren't closing. It's hard for you to differentiate yourself from one sales consultant, right? Because every sales consultant has, in some way, shape, or form, some closing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting you choose the word closing, because closing is very rarely the actual problem. The problem is usually, as we just said, that you don't know enough about your client to be able to close because you don't know what's important to them. But
Right.
I do want to challenge one thing you said, though, because you said it's not just to make your prospect or client feel good; it's also to find out what's important to them. But I think they're joined together.
Yeah, of course. The only reason why I use that, I completely agree. Obviously, somebody that feels listened to is more inclined to potentially want to do business with you. But I say that because I find a lot of times when I've heard salespeople say they let the prospect, talk, is like you just mentioned in your intro, is that they're just waiting to hear that one or two pain point that they know they can solve. And it's not just about that. It's not just about, Paul, the prospect, feeling listened to. It's about giving Paul the time to speak and to listen, to dive deeper on their problems. Because often prospects don't even realize the core impact that this is having, right? They just see that my reps aren't closing or my accounts receivable are a mess. And they maybe unconsciously know sometimes that, well, that's impacting my bottom line, but it's sometimes hard for him to justify or to really comprehend the impact that this is having on their business. And so by listening, you become this consultative seller, right? Like
yeah,
you're giving the time to, you're positioning yourself as the consultative expert as opposed to just like a product pusher.
exactly. You're taking the time to absorb and listen. And the other thing that that we wanted to mention, which I think is important, and you brought this up earlier, is before we were recording, is that some people will ask their question, they'll let their client talk, but it's like they're not really listening, and they're getting ready for the next question because they're trying to hone in on their objective of selling XYZ.
Right.
So I guess ultimately the question becomes, okay, you want to do all this stuff. How does a sales leader make sure that his people are doing this properly?
Right.
And I think I have a solution, and I think you have a way of operationalizing it. So I like that. So this is perfect.
Nice.
So and the solution to me is obviously role play simulations where you're actually timing to find out if someone's talking and listening. You time them literally. So you
Right.
say, okay, and you'll be surprised at seeing how much someone talks more than someone else, or how much more you talk than you think you do as a salesperson.
Right.
And you have to know if the person's listening. So how do you do that? So there's two ways. You can time them, just literally say, okay, Fab talked 53% of the time, and the prospect talked 47% of the time. And then you ask Fab, how much do you think you talk? Oh, I only talk 25% of the time. Actually, Fab, you talk 53. Oh, okay, all right. And then the other thing is you can do also a workshop where you literally go out and you just do a role play, and you have a bunch of issues that you get the prospect to tell the sales rep, and then you ask the sales rep afterwards, what did you hear? What's important to the client? What are the issues? And if they get 9 out of 10, it's great. But if they only get 3 out of 10, well, they're not really listening. They're just preparing the next question. And the reason it's important. Go ahead.
Go for it. No, I mean, I really like the role playing. I know in some of our earlier episodes, we would role play like cold calls. But I feel like that's such a great situation to learn in. I know it could be uncomfortable for salespeople, and even like the sales leader, right? It's sometimes a little bit uncomfortable to do the role play. But
well, as a sales leader, that's why you get the reps to be the reps first. You can be on the receiving end, but eventually you should be getting in there, getting muddy and dirty with your reps.
But I find it's so, because it's such a good way to learn in a very like safe environment, right? Other than, especially if you're doing like public role plays, like with colleagues around you, and then I would probably just do like one at a time, so it's not just like one person doing the role play each time. But I felt like that's such a great learning experience because you're not in an active call situation, right? There's no deal to be won or lost here, and it's such a way. Then afterwards, like listening to yourself or listening to your colleague doing it, you're realizing, oh wow, like we're really talking too much, right? It's such a great way to be confronted with the fact that you do talk too much.
Confronted with reality, and also and I agree with you. It's great, and just to use an analogy, in which sports do they not practice? I mean, it's
Right.
not like you just go and play baseball, right, or basketball. You need to practice. So role
And
playing is
they watch
practicing your sport.
themselves,
Yeah.
right? They do a lot of video
Yeah.
watching. I mean, we briefly mentioned a few episodes ago, like I got into F1, and I mean that's so much of what they do, right? They're looking at their stats, they're looking at their
Yeah.
race, they're looking at their practice session, they're looking, and that's the same thing as the role play, right? Like it's just looking at your performance, and practicing that, and being very, very mindful being mindful of what you're practicing or working on.
And the progression there that usually happens is, at first you get good at asking open-ended questions, but sometimes it's not natural. And because it's not natural, you're focusing so much on asking your open-ended questions that you forget to listen. But the human brain has a hard time doing both. So that's why you've got to practice it until you're really good at asking open-ended questions. And then they come naturally. Then your brain's focused on listening more.
Yeah.
So it's a good one. So Fab, how I'm a sales leader. I got to get my people to do role plays. That's fine, and I record them and I do workshops. But how would you operationalize that in a CRM or in a whatever?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, human behavior is a little harder to operationalize, but I think there's two real elements that I would focus on, and one is we've talked about quite a bit, our playbooks, right? So whether you're using HubSpot or another tool, is building your playbooks so that reps can take the time before they're during part of their call preparation is reviewing that playbook, looking at the information they need to collect. Hopefully, you're adding in some video training in there about reminding them about active listening and all the things. I think that's a great help, and there's the focus becomes more about helping the reps do their prep, right, as opposed to just trying to remind them of everything quickly on your one-on-one about like whatever it's. They have their playbook, they get to listen to it. So if you have an enterprise here, you can like actually populate your database, your CRM with the information that you're collecting during the call. But I really like that because it allows you to give them training without being on the phone with them, because you never know when the call could be, right? If it's Monday morning.
You mentioned it can be recordings, it can be links, it can be written in the playbook. So so first of all, the playbook is really all the plays, we're using football analogy as I said. So it's all the plays that you need to do to succeed, to sell, right? So in that playbook
at this stage, so at this stage, and you can marry it up, right? So you can set it up so that when they're at stage one of their sales process, these other playbooks that are being recommended, playbooks that are recommended. So they're going into a deal. They see the playbook they need to load. They load up the playbook. They have Paul giving a quick reminder of what they need to do at that stage and a reminder of the importance of active listening. They have like all the extra text and all that if they really want to dive deeper, if they have the time to dive deeper. And then they have the questions or the answers that they're looking for at this stage of their process, right? Because having those text fields or drop down fields or whatever of the answers they're looking for will also remind them that they need to give the prospect time to speak. And if I give just a personal example, I've set up playbooks for myself, and I know now that I can't really move a deal forward to the next stage if I forgot to ask questions or if we ran out of time. And the only thing I could really do is to schedule another call to help move them to the next stage of the process, because it's very much in my face. Like, oh, these two things I still don't know yet, right? Like we didn't have time to talk about it, or we weren't able to talk about it.
So it becomes a physical reminder of what you need to do. So your CRM, a lot of, so talking to sales leaders here, your CRM becomes a sales assistant for your salesperson. It's your right hand, if you like, as a sales leader, to help you get the salespeople to do the right thing, so they can go watch whatever it might be. They can go listen. They can go read, just at their specific point in the sales process to help them go to the thing. So in this case, it would be right from the beginning, active listening. A little role play. What does it mean? Asking open-ended questions, making sure you're digging deep into the needs, the wants, the motivation to really understand before you move to the next stage. And I like that because to me, I was even discussing this before the podcast. I said, well, how do you operationalize that? And then you came right back and said, well, exactly. Playbooks, it's a great idea, right?
Yeah.
So,
And then you could dive deeper. You can have like properties that a rep has to validate that they've loaded and done the playbook, before to be able to move a deal to the next stage, or you need to make sure that they've filled out certain answers before moving a deal to the next stage. So you can actually try to enforce it as well. But I think to me, what's great about the playbook is that it or an actual reminder, yes, but also an opportunity to train them live in the moment, right? Like I have a call in half an hour, I'm
yeah.
loading my playbook. I
Yeah.
have Paul or my sales leader doing a 2 or 3 5-minute video
Yeah.
about this stage, about active listening and all that stuff. Because that's the moment, like, right? That's the context that I'm in right now. So that would be one. The other element is your conversation intelligence tool. So HubSpot has theirs, but there's like Gong, there's Chorus AI and all that. And what they do is they record your conversations, and through AI, and they're getting quite good, I would say, you're able to determine how much a person is speaking versus not speaking. Offline, I said speaking versus listening, because we're kind of assuming that if you're not talking, you're listening.
Yes.
Not necessarily the case.
No.
But but that can then be used in the training after the fact, right? When you have your one-on-one with your rep, you can load up the conversation that they had on Monday and be like, hey, Paul, like, look, you talked 50% of the time. And like, what was that all about? And blah, blah, blah. And you can train them on that. So the playbook is a bit pre-call training reminder. And then you have your conversation intelligence tool, which is about the post, right? The training.
Yeah. What did you actually do?
Post-call training. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's how I would operationalize the active listening component.
That's good. That's great. So the next in our new format, we're going to talk about the top things to remember. So
5 things.
Well, did we want to ask any? Did we want to add? You see, I'm thinking in the asking thing. Did we want to add anything to this? Is there anything we want to add before we get into the top? I don't know if there's 10, but the top things that we want people to retain.
I don't know. I think we've covered it. What do we want our salespeople to do, right? We want
so here they go then. Okay, so top things. What we want our people to do. Go for it.
Well, that's it. We want our salespeople to listen, right? An active listening, not just passive listening, waiting for an answer. An active listening situation, so that they can dive deeper and understand the true impact on the business that their problem is having. And why do we want them to have the impact? I think is because at the end of the day, it helps you close more, because you're talking about how you're going to solve a real business impact, as opposed to, we're going to help automate your invoice collection, right? Like that's tactical. But at the end of the day, we're going to help you increase your revenue by, 26%, because, that's what we've realized that your current problem is, right? That you're not collecting 26% of your revenue.
And can I say number 2?
Yep.
I've got a number 2, and it's very short. Yes. You're listening, not pitching.
Yeah.
So salespeople are always pitching. So don't pitch. Listen at the beginning. It's not time to pitch yet. So if you go into pitch mode, punch yourself in the head and keep listening.
Yeah, because in your process, there's usually a presentation stage of some sort, right? And I guess it's not pitching either, but you're presenting the solution, like after you've collected all the facts, and you're like, well, we're here to help you, increase your revenue by 26%. And here's how we're going to do it with, our service or our tool or whatever you're doing. So there is a time usually in their sales process to present the offer. Yeah. Right?
You're not going on a Shark Tank or Dragon's Den and you're not doing a pitch, right? That's not what you're doing. If you're doing that, do a pitch, but then that's not selling. That is an infomercial selling. That's when you don't get to interact. But that's not consultative selling. That is pitching or so. All right, that's 2. So what's the third one?
I think the third one is also maximizing the tools that you have, right? Like you in 2022, almost 2023, you have a sort of sales tech stack, right? You have a CRM, you have automation tools, you have listening. Like, make sure that you're using those tools for very concrete objectives. Don't just use a playbook because you can use a playbook. Use your playbook in our context today to help your sales team, remind your sales team that they have to engage in active listening at this stage of their sales process. So definitely leverage the tools that you have.
So investigate the sales stack to make sure that you have the right tools in your sales stack to enable you to help your team to listen.
Exactly. Fourth one would be, coach your team. You mentioned that, right? Like coach and work with a team and do role plays, because at the end of the day, it's practice makes perfect, right? And you can, we had a few sports analogies. You can watch all the videos that you want, and you can watch all of the things you want, but at the end of the day, it's practice that's going to help you win, so to speak. And so don't shy away from that. For some reason, active listening gets forgotten a lot. I think we do a lot of product training. We do a lot of prospecting training. We do a lot of maybe cold call training or call trainings, but I find active listening is maybe often forgotten. And it's almost more important, right? If you have a decent pipeline building machine, right, like prospecting or inbound, listening is such a key element to it.
Yeah,
so,
as a salesperson, learning to listen, I agree with you. Yeah, totally agree. Good one.
Then we had evaluate your reps, right, through a workshop. Like you talked about workshop. It's just
you can even do an assessment.
Timing them.
It can be
assess them.
Yeah.
Do an assess them. Are they good listeners? Is this a challenge? Are they improving over time? Are they getting better at listening? And you could even do like in the context of a workshop. I forget what you called it, but basically, somebody tells a story, and then you ask like, what are the 5 key elements of that story, and you can already right away tell the reps that we're paying attention, not paying attention, listening, not listening.
Well, you do that in school when you start, so you can do that at the first level, and then you can throw the rep into the asking the questions and trying to do it at the same time. So that's a good one.
Yeah. And then still in the evaluation, so the next thing is like using your conversation intelligence tool, right? That's another way of being able to evaluate in real life, like, are they getting better at listening or getting better at not talking? Unfortunately, we're not there. The listening, whether the AI can determine whether they're listening or not, but are they good at letting the prospect talk? I think it's also so that you have your workshops to see how they're getting better at moments in time. But on a continual basis, you have your conversation intelligence tools that allow you to determine whether they're actually letting their prospects speak. And the last one I had is, analyze then your sales data, especially like your close rate and your conversion rates from stage to stage, because you're hoping that at the end of the day, all of this, it's improving, right? So, I mean, it might be hard to build like a causational relationship, but definitely correlational, right? If you're noticing that, I've been working a lot on Paul's active listening skills through the playbooks and the workshops and the role plays and the, review of calls and all that, hopefully over time, his closing rates will go up. His conversion rates between deal stages will go up as well.
Yeah. Well, one thing that's very important there, and I'll add one last one, is that I totally agree with you. You want to see over time it goes up, but usually when you're asking someone to change a behavior and they're really willing to change that behavior, often they'll get a little worse before they get better. What do I mean? What do I mean by that is that if you're trying to integrate a new technique, let's say you're an athlete and you're trying to integrate a new way of throwing the ball, well, you might be worse before you get better. So you want to practice that. You want to make sure you're good at it. So there might be a little bit of a lag. You don't want it to affect the sales for a long time, but you might say that, oh my God, I'm trying this the first few times. It's hard. So that's why, even more of a reason to make sure that you're really good at it before you actually put it in play, because you don't want to be losing big accounts because you're trying to you're trying to ask the proper question and your mind is paralyzed on the question and totally forgets to listen to what the person says. So that's good. So hey, we that's good. So I think those are good takeaways.
Yep.
Do we do our afterthoughts?
We'll see. We'll end it for now. All right, Paul, that was really good. That was fun. I like this. That was good.
Yeah, it was fun. I think it was good. It's a little stressful because we wanted to make sure we do it properly, but I think we got the information out there. So good.
As long as people get value out of it, and I think I think we had 8 takeaways at the end. I think they're all really key.
Good.
Yeah. All right. Take care, everybody. Take care, Paul.
Take care, everyone.